Welcome back to Vital Signs. We are going to shift gears and talk about workplace safety and liability. I have Jason DeSouza, a formidable force in the legal arena here. He is a champion for the rights of accident victims throughout the state. Welcome to the studio, Jason.
Hi, Jen. How are you? My name is Jason DeSouza. I am the founder of DeSouza Injury Lawyers in San Antonio, and we represent injured people all over the state of Texas.
So, Jason, how can small businesses minimize the risk of workplace injuries?
Well, that's a great question, Jen, and it's a question that I get a lot. Even though I only represent individuals who have been injured in workplaces and injured because of the negligence of others, business owners ask me that question all the time because they never want to wind up in the place where the worst place to be for a business is the courthouse being sued. So they never want to wind up there. So when they ask me that question, the first thing I will always say is, when you're running a business, no matter what the business is, you want to think safety first and safety always. And what that means is, what are the policies and procedures that you're putting in place that make sure and ensures that you're running the safest business possible? Because accidents they're waiting to happen. They can happen at any time, and they can happen because of the fault of anyone. But at the end of the day, if you're a business owner, the fault can always fall on you since you are that owner.
So I really like that. Safety first, safety always. What steps should a business owner take immediately after an employee is injured at work?
Well, you know, that's another great question, and I'm usually asked that question immediately by my clients. So what'll usually happen is, and we'll use the oil field for an example, there'll be an explosion at a plant, and the EMS will arrive on the scene. They'll pick up an injured employee. There'll be witnesses, or there'll be other employees who are also on the scene but they're still injured, but they're not needing an EMS. And the first thing they'll always say is, hey, Jason, what should I do? Well, the first thing you should always do as an employee is document the scene. And that applies just the same way for business owners also. Take photos, document the scene. The second thing you can do as an employee is the same thing you can do as a business owner, which is write a report. The first thing you want to do if there's ever an incident at the workplace is to document the incident. Find out the 5 W's and the H, which is the who, what, when, where, and why, and the how. So you want to immediately be able to pin down exactly what happened, why it happened, where it happened, how it happened, when it happened, where it happened. I hope those are the 5 W's and I didn't miss one. And you want to also supplement that with photos. So you want to figure out exactly what the issue was, what the photographs support, and what the photographs show, and you want to make sure you get documentation right away. Because as an injured worker, you want to be able to support your claim. As a business, you want to make sure that you're defending yourself. And so many times, in so many cases that I have, you'll get injured employees in a workplace where it's not the injured worker's fault and it's not the business's fault. So what does that mean? Well, whose fault is it? Well, oftentimes you'll have a third party that comes in that causes the injury because they're not familiar with the workplace rules and the policies, and they'll come in and they're kind of like a bull in a china shop. So the best thing to do is document and photograph for the business and for the employee.
I absolutely agree with you. Documentation is so incredibly important, and I love the 5 W's and the H for that. So what are the most common misconceptions that you've seen about workplace injury liability for small businesses?
Right, and you know, Jen, that's also a question I get asked a lot, but I don't get asked that question by small businesses. I tend to always get asked that question by insurance adjusters. So when they ask me that question, I won't tell them, but I'll tell you and I'll tell your viewers. The number one issue that seems to come up when dealing with small businesses and injuries at small businesses is liability. And if you were to ask what liability is, liability just means fault. And in a personal injury case, for example, there's two things. Well, there's three things going on. There's fault, there's damages, and there's the ability to collect money for those damages. Now, right now we're not really talking about the injuries or the money to collect, but we're talking about fault. And oftentimes, once the insurance company shows up, they will cause the business to put their back against the wall. And they usually will do that by, they'll give an example of why the business should not cooperate in the lawsuit in terms of finding fault. And all this means is the insurance company is wanting to save money. Because if the business comes out right away and accepts responsibility, then it'll be a much quicker case. You get fault determined, you get liability determined very quickly, and the case can get closed that much faster. So I'd say the number one misconception about injuries at a workplace is accepting liability and accepting fault. And again, like I said, I think the counsel of the advice that the insurance company gives to its insured is to not accept responsibility. I think the second common misconception about workplace injury liability is that your rates will go up. And that's the other issue that many businesses are concerned with. I think auto owners are concerned with that, homeowners are concerned with that, business owners are concerned with that. If you have insurance, you're concerned with it. And that's the other implied threat that the insurance company makes is, listen, if this is your fault, this is going to cause your rates to go up. And that's a real threat to a business owner or an auto holder or a homeowner, because nobody really wants their rates to go up. And they're given this false choice of, if you accept responsibility, now your rates will go up. And if you think about it, they're not really related at all. And the reason why is that they've already evaluated your risk. They've already written the policy for you. They already know who you are. They already know who the business is. They already know what kind of line of work you're in, where you're at, what you do. And that underwriting has already come in and done all the hard work. So if you have one claim in a short period of time, well, the truth is it doesn't really make that big of an impact on your future underwriting. Now, if you're a frequent flyer and you have a lot of stuff going on at your business, well, I think you're a problem, and I think that goes to adopting an attitude of safety first and safety always. But the second misconception is, if you accept fault, your rates are going to go up. And that's not true at all. If you accept fault, you will actually make the claim go a lot faster, because everybody will immediately know what they have to deal with. Now they know that fault liability is not an issue, and all they have to do now is evaluate the damages and the injuries of the plaintiff. So that's the second misconception. I think a third and final misconception about workplace injury is that it's a person's fault. And you might ask me, Jason, what do you mean it's a person's fault? Well, oftentimes something will happen, and you'll think, well, hey, this is because I hired Eduardo in the warehouse, and he screwed up, and he got the delivery door dropped on his head, and it's his fault for doing that. I think that misconception, what you really have to look at is, what's the system that's been put in place versus the person, what is the system? So what kind of system does the business have in place to ensure safety for Eduardo in the warehouse when he's loading the trucks, right? Are they making sure that the trucks that are pulling up to the warehouse are putting chocks underneath the wheels? Are they making sure that truck is stopped and fully in park when Eduardo is loading that truck up? Or are they just trying to get the packages out of that warehouse as fast as they possibly can? So it's not the person that's causing the issue. 9 times out of 10, it's the system. And if you correct what's actually happening in the system, that will then cause you to have, number one, a safer workplace, and number two, safer employees, and most importantly, that'll keep your rates down and it'll keep the claims down.
Thank you so much for sharing your valuable expertise and kind of debunking some of those myths